Hello and welcome to Stage Door Live, a brand new web programme for the community of artists here in Ireland. My name is Amy Kidd, I'm an actor and I'll be your host this evening. When the director Kevin Michael Reid came to me and he said that he thought he wanted to create a space where you could get all of the latest headlines and hot topics from the arts community in one place, I thought that it was a great idea. So every week I'll be giving you a little news roundup of arts related hot topics, and I'll be speaking with some guest speakers that live and work here in Ireland. We hope you enjoy the show. Tonight I'll be talking to Dr. Kate McCarthy and Dr. Oona Keeley from the Department of Creative and Performance Art in Waterford Institute of Technology. Together, they have authored numerous papers and engaged in projects which shed a light on those voices in Irish theatre who are all too often forgotten about and even excluded. We'll then be joined by Amanda Coogan. Amanda is an internationally recognised and critically acclaimed artist working across the medias of live art, performance, photography and video, and is well known for her work with Dublin Theatre of the Deaf and as a sign language interpreter. Finally, we are honoured to air a short film by Noon Abubakar, a member of Wexford Youth Theatre, with an important message that she'd like to share. I'm Amy Kidd, and this is Stage Door Live for the 10th of June 2020. Hello, it is great to see you all for another episode of Stage Door Live. I really can't believe that this is our 9th episode already. Run through this week's headlines, of which there are quite a few. I wanted to say thank you to tuned in for last week's conversation on access and inclusion. We're really looking forward to continuing that discussion tonight and, of course, into the future. Conversations around inclusivity, equity and equality aren't always easy and they aren't always comfortable, but they are so important. To make it, we are committed to learning and to growing and helping the Irish theatre sector to do the same by having these tough conversations and essential discussions in this space here. And one more thing before the news. As we start to see production announced instead of cancelled and buildings reopening instead of closing, the producers of theatremaker.ie had an idea. So in next week's episode, we're going to be focusing on audiences. We'll be talking with practitioners and safety experts about how they're monitored and what steps are being taken to keep our audiences and also our theatre makers safe. But we need your help. We would really like to feature some of you in next week's show. If you are an Irish Theatre audience member, which I assume almost all of you are, between now and then, we would love if you would record a little video and post it to your social media answering, what do you need from theatre? Just record the video, post it to your social media, tag theatremaker.ie so that we can find it, and using the hashtag audiences are coming back so that we find it in that feed. We're really looking forward to hearing your answers and to featuring a few of those next week's show. And now the news. So firstly, we'd like to offer our congratulations. If you were tuned in to episode 5 of Stage Door Live, you will know that we were joined by Oona, who told us all about the Civics Artist Emergency Route fund has a target of €5,000, €550,000, apologies, and donations are being accepted to replenish the fund and to continue to provide support to artists in the application queue. And entered into phase 2 of the lockdown exit strategy. Theatre Forum released part 3 of their guidelines in arts centres. A document titled Creating a Safe Place of Assembly was released, and it includes details on considerations such as venue entry policies, capacity restrictions, and disabled needs provisions. The document outlines the critical action points for opening art centres as being facilitated distancing, introduction of a rigorous cleaning programme, promotion of good hygiene practices, and clear communication with staff. And we're going to put a link to the complete document in the show description after this episode. Now, programming news, the Midsummer Festival's Midsummer programme and runs through June 21st. Our associate producer, Janice de Bruyne, has put together festival picks in this week's instalment of her blog called Beyond the Pale. You can check that blog out at theatremaker.com. Theatre makers and theatre goers alike have another adapted event to look forward to, as Dublin Fringe Festival announced on Friday that they will be going ahead. This year's Fringe runs September 5th to 20th, and it promises to offer audiences the freshest art experiences and amplifying voices that defy the mainstream. According to their website, this year's festival events will play with form, shape perceptions, and make space for joy, and will even include a Fringe Comes to You option. The full statement and more information about Dublin Festival Pilot Light Edition can be found at fringefest.ie. And as always, you'll be able to find that link in our show description as well. Also announced on Friday, the pandemic unemployment payment has been extended to the end of August, though there will be some changes after June 29th. Roughly a quarter of people receiving the pandemic unemployment payment can expect to have their payments decreased from €350 to €203 per week. Regina Doherty, Minister for Social Protection, described changes to the payment as a gentle recalibration to make the system more equitable. The change is calculated based on an individual's weekly income prior to lockdown. Anyone making €200 or more pre-crisis will remain at a weekly rate of €350, while anyone making less than €200 a week pre-crisis will drop down to €203 per week. It is unclear as of yet whether any special consideration will be given to artists and arts workers whose yearly income can often be pretty difficult to break down into weekly rates like that outline is based on. There is still widespread concern about long-term support plans for the arts industry. In an article from RTE, Pierce Doherty, head of production for events including Electric Picnic, has called for a wider discussion about the future of the industry. Pierce says, there are 3,000 people employed full-time in the arts. At the peak of the season, this number increases to about 13,000. A lot of talented professionals are going to leave the industry. The article goes on to say that according to Angela Dorgan, chair of the NCFA, the 13-point recovery plan put forward last week has received a positive response from the government and opposition TDs. And speaking of NCFA, a new campaign supported by RTE has been launched across television and social media networks with the hashtag #SaveTheArts. And let's take a closer look at that.
RTE, supporting the arts.
And we asked Angela Dorgan about the goals and purpose of the campaign.
Hi, my name is Angela Dorgan and I'm the current chair of the National Campaign for the Arts. I've been invited to say a couple of words about our current campaign, #SaveTheArts. The goals of the campaign are to support our recovery, stabilisation and recovery plan for the arts, which is a 13-point plan sent to government late last month. The #SaveTheArts campaign was centred around an ad, and we will be following it up with print ads and social media postings, tying the public perception to what art actually is and how far and wide and deep and tall the arts are. And the idea was to remind people that art is what kept them company during the lockdown. It was everywhere in their houses. It was the books they were reading, the music they were listening to, the films and TV they were watching. And would love to know if you think it's working.
With many high-profile individuals and organisations speaking out in favour of a more robust plan of action for the sector, we hope to see Ireland's widespread love of the arts reflected in its policy for post-COVID recovery. Among those speaking up in favour of protecting the arts and culture sector is President Michael D. Higgins. In a letter to the President of the European Parliament, President Higgins asks, Is it not now the time to place access to culture among the necessary infrastructural spending and investment in provisions for universal basic services? He goes on to say, our artists of all ages and backgrounds, contemporary and classical, need our solidarity now. We'll put a link to the President's letter in the show description after the show, if you want to read the whole thing. On the international stage, as protests sparked by the death of George Floyd continue in the States, more and more arts venues and organisations are engaging in discussions of how to make the global theatre industry a more equitable and inclusive environment. In the US on Monday, an open letter titled "We See You, White American Theatre" was published, co-signed by hundreds of Black, Indigenous and people of colour theatre makers. Alongside the letter, a petition was launched demanding change, stating, "We stand on this ground as BIPOC theatre makers, multi-generational, at varied stages in our career, but fiercely in love with the theatre. Too much to continue it under abuse. We will wrap the least privileged among us in protection and fearlessly share our many truths." We'll post a link to the petition in the episode description after this show as well. In the UK, the Society of London Theatre and UK Theatre has announced a new partnership with Inc. Arts, set up by Amanda Parker. Inc. Arts represents the creative, contractual and economic rights of Black and minority ethnic freelancers, organisations and employees. Head of UK Theatre Sebastian Carter said that the partnership is the start of a new debate that we can positively support and help move the agenda forward. Research into career progression in the arts sector is currently being undertaken by Inc. Arts, the findings of which are due to be published later this year. And The Stage, The Guardian and the BBC have also reported that many of the UK's top drama schools have received serious backlash from former and current students after posting hypocritical messages of solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement on their social media pages. The extent to which they have failed their Black students is increasingly evident, with so many coming forward detailing the racial discrimination, systematic and institutionalised racism that has occurred within these schools. And our final headline for this week comes from Utopia Theatre and Sheffield Theatres, who have partnered to launch the Creative Hub, an online platform aiming to give Black artists greater visibility and to strengthen Black African communities within the arts. The Creative Hub will run a 6-month-long free programme offering courses, workshops, talks, and one-to-one sessions for people of African origin aged 16 and above. The Creative Hub launches on June 29th. And that is all for this week's news. If you think we missed anything that was vitally important, you can, and please do, send us your news stories at news@theatremaker.ie or get in touch with us on social media. Don't forget to check out our blog for our news producers weekly post with some more news, the news that didn't quite make it in the episode. It's on theatremaker.ie every week. And if you haven't already, please do give us a like on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and share the show with your friends and followers. On YouTube, you can click on that subscribe button and click the little bell to get notifications of our future broadcasts and our YouTube exclusive content. We have our first pair of guests joining us from the same location, which does remind us that that the restrictions are slowly starting to ease. We're delighted to welcome Dr. Kate McCarthy and Dr. Oona Keeley. Both are lecturers at Waterford Institute of Technology, and over the last number of years have been leading the way in researching and engaging in theatre makers' practices that are all too often left out of the mainstream. Currently, they are leading the Performing the Region project, which investigates the theatre practice of the southeast of Ireland, and Letters from the Past, an archival project which researches the correspondence between Waterford playwrights Teresa Deevy and James Cheasty. These projects involve creative contributions such as play readings, workshops, and performances. Hello, welcome to you both. Is your audio? Can you say something for me just so I can check your audio?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Oh, good.
Hi.
Yes, now I can hear you.
Great.
I see you have the meters distance between you.
Yes, I'm almost out of frame.
Yeah, strange new world. How are you both today?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, we're great. Glad to be in the same. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. No, I can imagine. I'm going to jump straight in then. Could you both, seeing as you're in the same location, I'll kind of let you. There's a question for both of you. You can decide who answers it first. Can you tell me a little bit more about what brought you into working in the realm of marginalised theatre and kind of theatre for social change?
Well, I suppose I could start off with the answer to that. Kate and I have been working together in WIT for the past decade or longer. And for the past, I suppose, 10 years of that, we've been working together on a project called Performing the Region, which you mentioned, which was at first set up to think about how we could plug in what we saw as a gap in the narrative of the story of Irish theatre, to tell the stories of theatre that came from the southeast. And we looked at, we began to look at writers, I suppose, in the first instance. We looked at the work of Jim Nolan, we looked at the work of Teresa Deevy. Then we began to look at theatre companies, and we looked at the work of Red Kettle. And do you want to take it on the story from there?
Yeah, and I suppose what's relevant in that project to this conversation is the way in chronicling that work that we began to realise that Red Kettle, as a professional theatre company, that it actually grew out of an agency called Waterford Arts for All, and that agency had its roots in another agency called Combat Poverty. Thank you, and the aim of that agency was to combat social exclusion through the art form of theatre. So the theatre practice, the professional theatre practice in Waterford, grew out of a need to address issues in society and to contribute to the social and cultural fabric of the city.
Yes, and that was very much the Red Kettle. And then, of course, what came out of the Waterford Arts for All project were Red Kettle Theatre, and also Kitog, which became Waterford Youth Drama, which is now Waterford Youth Arts. And we did interviews with Ollie Breslin and Jim Nolan, talking to them about their experiences of what it was to make theatre at that time. And of course, Ted
O'Regan and Mary O'Regan would be very influenced by education. So we were able to pull, I suppose, some of the strands then from my PhD, and which was around this relationship between participatory performance, which is a term that some people might use to describe socially engaged theatre or performance, and drama education. What was common between all the work that we looked at was that whatever term you used, it was the interweaving of the art forms of drama and theatre with this social change agenda. That is how transformation happened, because that allowed you to engage participants with their own story, but also to stand back and to critically assess and reflect on their contributions and what was happening in their society.
And their inclusion and exclusion into the wider society. And that we found that to be very interesting and stimulating to us in our own work.
Yeah, fantastic. And so this work that you do for social change, when you started exploring that, were there any kind of common things that would come up again and again? Like, what kind of social change work were you engaging with?
So I suppose we went to look then at practice, to start applying what we were thinking about theoretically. So we began to broaden out from Waterford, and I knew Maeve Lambert. We had both done a weeks-long training with Augusto and Julian Boal a number of years ago. So I made a connection with her, and we went to visit her and the Equinox. And this was what we learned from that is when you're working in theatre for social change, there's a very different kind of negotiation taking place between the actor and the director, if even like May wouldn't actually use that term, and a very different negotiation going on between the actor and the performers. And indeed, the theatre company works differently with the venue, to allow for things like the relaxed performance mode, so that you can build an inclusive environment for everybody to see that work. And as well, I suppose it's a term that we found, in fact, we're kind of moving away from it now, participatory performance, and actually coming back to theatre, because that is what all this work is. Sometimes I think we have to resist prefixing these terms with a kind of another descriptor, but sometimes these terms, they can help you challenge some of those binaries, like amateur, professional, or low aesthetic, high aesthetic. So it was really in dialogue with the practitioners and the actors in Equinox, and we spoke as well to Mary Moynihan and Frida Manweiler in Smashing Times, that they really helped us understand, like, what does theatre for social change look like in the rehearsal room and on stage.
And I suppose just to kind of to develop that argument again, we were working all the time with our students in the classroom, in the rehearsal room, on how they would create not only performances but ways of working that would encompass and explore the concerns that were particular and relevant to them. And I suppose in tandem with all of that work was the work that we were doing on researching Teresa Deevy, who was writing for the Abbey primarily in the 1930s. And of course, all the thematic strands that go through Deevy's work are around issues of inclusion and how you resist a dominant hierarchy, how you resist dominant and often oppressive values within a society. So I suppose when you ask us that question, were the same things coming up again and again? What was within the work that we were thinking about and engaging with, both in theory and in practice, was how does theatre act as a site of resistance? Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. Would you say?
Yes, I would say.
Can we do that?
you so often kind of work with groups that are marginalized or don't get a voice. What's the kind of driving force behind that for you guys? Why do you think it's so important to work with those groups and theatre makers?
It's part of, I suppose, the lens that we take would be this kind of feminist historiographic lens. And part of the role of that is not only to make visible the work that is happening and to find to complete where you can the story of the canon, but also to critically evaluate, like, why is that exclusion happening? What are the factors involved in that? And we
Why
say that,
is
and we're in a very privileged position. We work in the academy. We have, so we have a phrase that we use. You have to be careful of academics to the rescue. That there's lots of people making great work and challenging the canon in different ways, and we're just trying to add, I suppose, our experience of being in the region to that.
And I think what, interestingly, we were having this conversation off air about the work, the training, I suppose, that we both did as academics. My training came through my PhD, which was to look at the work of a very obscure writer from North Kerry called George Fitzmaurice, whose work wasn't really accepted in the Abbey at the time. I mean, it was full of flaws, but I suppose I spent a lot of my formative years as a researcher looking at work that was marginalized and difficult, or perceived as difficult, or perceived as not quite mainstream. And Kate's work was often about,
like as part of the PhD work, you're talking about, you're reading a lot about companies who are really trying to address societal challenges, but as you say, they don't find that those stories don't make their way onto the mainstream. And part of that is about two historiographers that we find really helpful, Claire Cochrane and Joe Robinson. They have this phrase, the narrative of erasure, and it's trying to challenge that and also understand why that's happening. And that, we have to face up to that responsibility as teachers and researchers as well, that you don't continue to contribute to the narrative.
Yes, yeah. You mentioned Theresa D a little earlier. I wonder, she's such a fascinating person. I wonder, would you just, for anyone that maybe hasn't heard of her, give a little context? Because not only was she marginalized as a woman, but she had. I'll let you talk about her.
Well, Theresa Duffy was born in Waterford in the late 1800s, 1898. She went to school in the Ursuline Convent in Waterford, where she was a fabulous student. We've done quite a bit of archival work on DV's school, and it's wonderful. And she received just a wonderful education there, full of arts, creativity, music, sport, playwriting. They did loads of theatricals at school, and she was all set to go out and take on the world. And when she left her undergraduate in UCD, she contracted Meniere's disease in her first year whilst an undergrad and became deaf. She came back to Waterford, went to Cork to finish off her studies. She was in the Pioneer Hospital in Cork at the time, which is why she went there. She then travelled to London to learn lip reading, which was the fashion at the time for how deaf people would communicate. Whilst in London, she went to the theatre. She would read the script of plays before she went, and then she would practice her lip reading whilst at the theatre, which is, it combined her practical need to learn how to communicate with her love of literature and her particular love of theatre. While she was in London, she realised that she was well able, she could do this. Of course, her return to work coincided with the heyday of the Irish literary revival. The Abbey Theatre had been formed in 1904. She was coming back in the early decades of the new century when there was so much hope and so much possibility. And she began writing for the Abbey in the late 1920s. Her first play was produced there in 1930. She went on to have 6 plays produced in 6 years in the Abbey then, which was a phenomenal output. And
most people
she was
know Roach, wouldn't they? That would be the kind of
yes, absolutely recognised by her contemporaries as one of the very important playwrights of the 1930s. Towards the end of the 30s, Lady Gregory and Yeats had moved on, had passed on, and there was a new. We didn't quite catch that.
I think we just missed that little bit of timing.
Sorry, Kevin. I think you've got a delay on me. Kevin. It wasn't. I asked it a lot earlier. There's a delay on my feed. I think. Sorry, can you hear me now? Yes. When you said you hadn't heard me, I'd actually asked it a long time ago and I had a lag. So don't worry about it. Continue.
So what happened in the early 40s was that Deevy's star, which had risen so high, went into a decline. Her plays were no longer accepted at the Abbey for various reasons, and we have a wonderful PhD scholar, Dana Coogan, who's looking into different aspects of the Abbey Theatre and different aspects of Deevy in particular. But I suppose what the real tragedy was twofold. Firstly, that Deevy didn't have an outlet for her plays anymore because the Abbey was such an important producing house for her. There wasn't really another theatre in Dublin at the time that would allow her that kind of the platform for her kind of work. And secondly, that because her work was then not produced in the Abbey, it wasn't researched. It slowly faded into the background. Now, great work was in the 1980s by Sean Dunn, the poet who was originally from Waterford, and then in 1995, a wonderful collection was published by the Irish University Review, commenting and researching Deevy's work. But really, in the interim, there hasn't been an awful lot. There have been some wonderful scholars who have kind of given access to the work,
and of course the production. So Coogan doing the appropriation of The King of Spain's Daughter in collaboration with Dublin Theatre of the Deaf, Caroline Byrne directing Katie with the Abbey, and then internationally the Mint Theatre in New York. I suppose really kind of spearheaded that revival.
That's true. And
yeah,
and then there was the little bit of the story that Waterford could plug into, which was the second ever production of Deevy's play Wife to James Whelan, which took place in Garter Lane Arts Centre.
Yeah.
So there was that lovely moment of revival, I suppose, or a period of revival, celebrating Deevy's work. And we were so lucky and fortunate to be involved in that. And I know you've got Amanda on later, and we were absolutely privileged to see that production and to be able to work with Amanda to record it in the way that we did, which is about it.
Yes, yeah, it's wonderful. And you've spoken a little bit about your role as educators. So you're working so directly with the next generation of theatre makers and, theatre interested young people. Are there any changes that you've observed over the last few years in relation to areas of interest like representation, inclusive practice, and so on, with those people that you work with?
Yeah, I suppose the students are always responding to the practice-based research you bring to them, but the culture of the organisation. And reflecting, I suppose, on we have a very strong devising stream running through the theatre studies programme. So we really try and encourage students to find, or to, a platform for their voices and their stories. But certainly, I think the main theme that we think coming through is students engaging with issues around mental health, and sometimes not even directly. So, for example, this one of our students working on the play Spring Awakening, and then kind of blended that with the musical and with their own writing. And even though they were producing the original text, what they were trying to do was allow the text to speak to contemporary concerns about sexuality and young people, and particularly in those secondary years, how challenging it can be. So it's not always they can use some of the they sometimes have used some of the classical texts to do that, or with the yellow wallpaper. We had a group of students working on that as well, and linking up with Pieta House, so kind of using it as a fundraising. So they are socially engaged for sure, and that topic is really important to them and to us all.
And another thing that I suppose one of the great things about the arts degree in WIT, where theatre study lives, is that we have these small groups, which is great because you can do so much with the students, but it can be a disadvantage, I suppose, for students. You don't always have, you need to be in the piece of you might be rehearsing at the time. But what we have, to our great delight, I have to say, is that it has proven no disadvantage at all. Our students will play any character without batting an eyelid. So, for example, our first year group were looking at The King of Spain's Daughter, Deevy's The King of Spain's Daughter. There are male and female characters in it. The first group this year happened to be an all-male group. And what I thought was wonderful was that both of them, both of the female characters, neither of those characters were off limits. So, in fact, we had Mrs. Marks being played by, one of our male students, and nobody thought that was even the slightest bit unusual. So, I suppose this willingness to embrace a character, regardless of the physical abilities, ethnicity, the gender presentation of that character, none of those seem to matter. And I suppose when I look back to the time when I was at college and doing the same thing, and we didn't have the same kind of immediate response to characters that presented the gender other than the gender that we were. So I think that's an interesting thing.
Yes, for sure.
There seems no problem with that.
Yeah, very, very encouraging as we look forward. Speaking of looking forward, there have been a lot of conversations recently around, marginalized voices, around representation, around access, and all of this kind of stuff that we're talking about. What changes do you think we need to see going forward? The priority ones and the kind of ongoing changes that might take longer.
In terms of theatre, I mean, to add our voice to what the NCFA are trying to do is that it absolutely needs proper investment. And one of the immediate goals that the NCFA have put out is the need for investment so that artists can make work about now, the present, for all audiences. But I suppose what we'd like to add to that is, if it's going to be for all audiences, then there also needs to be a conversation around how do you continue the inclusive environments that have been established. So last week I was really struck. Aisling Byrne was saying from Run of the Mill that they just felt they were on the cusp. Run of the Mill were touring Equinox. We're about to do a tour, the work that Blue Teapot are doing. So there is really good work happening, and the theatres are responding by having audio description, etc. But it's how, when things are in such crisis, it's how can you rethink the way the system works so that the same kind of inequalities and problems repeat themselves. So it's investment, of course, in the work that artists do, but it's also investment to allow them to have those conversations with practitioners, with various companies. I think that's one thing that I'd like to add.
And I suppose it's really important to insist on a narrative of inclusion and to insist on the practices of inclusion when we are about to enter a time with severe financial economic austerity, that inclusion isn't an added extra, that we as a society can insist on that and our voices be heard. And that goes really for all sectors. It's for us in education as well. We're facing into working out how we might do more things online, and you start to plan with the minority in mind, so that it's universal for everyone. So it's just changing how you think and about access. And I suppose changing how you think is one thing, and then having the courage to fight the battle. The battle isn't easy. It's not easy to be the voice in the room arguing for equality. I mean, we have often been, we are those voices in our own institution, and it isn't easy.
And we learned from Davy. She was that voice, and she paid a really heavy price for it. But we can honour her work now, as many people have done, and show what she was trying to do. But it is a battle ongoing.
But no, you're right. We all have to be brave, and we have to be vigilant with ourselves and with the people around us. I think you're getting my image from a few minutes before, but I think you're getting my voice. So that might be a bit confusing right now, but we're going to try and sort it out. So thank you so much for that lovely interview. So much for what you said. So great. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And have a lovely evening.
And likewise. We look forward to the rest. Thank you.
Am I in my normal time lapse? Let's see. Our next featured guest, Mark Smith, is an actor with Run of the Mill Theatre Company and was nominated for Best Actor in Dublin Fringe Festival 2019 for his show Making a Mark. Here's Mark to tell us more about Irish Sign Language by Amanda Coogan.
Hi, my name is Mark David Thomas Smith. Yeah, next month is my birthday. I'm actually an actor as well. And I'm actually work with Run of the Mill Theatre. Making a Mark is actually my show I done last year, back in 2019, with my collaborators, my director Sean Dunn, and my partner in the show, Ashley Byrne.
Mark.
Yep.
What are your talents?
I'm an actor, a singer, and a dancer.
Would you say that you're a triple threat then?
Oh yes. They were really good to take me on. And then when we got into the different venues of the show, like the Abbey, the Access in Ballymun, I got last year, a year before that, in 2018, I got this pregnancy in the Access in Ballymun. I'm really proud to get that in Ballymun. So back to the Making a Mark. Making a Mark is actually, I had struggles about, like, I lost my dad. I got bullied. I actually gained a lot of weight. I didn't have any confidence at all. So, that's the elements of my show, Making a Mark.
So Mark, what were some of the highlights of the experience of Making a Mark for you?
My highlight would be my team around me, like Sean, Jack, Sarah Foley, Oona Wynne, Gordon, Scott, Leah, especially this one person made a lot of fuss around Making a Mark and put it on TV, and that was Kealy Coyle. And Kealy is just the best person to work with because he knows every single thing in the business of media and newspapers. And then we have Owen and Sarah. Like Owen is amazing because he got the right element of the light on the stage. And then Sarah Foley is brilliant because she did really nice costumes for me and Ashing. And Sean, what a legend director, by the way, because he was brilliant. We did have a bit of fun and work at the same time. And then we had Gordon, who's the guy who does all the leader stuff on the stage. Then we have Scott, he was brilliant as well. But there's one person, there's two more, and that is Leah. She was brilliant because she was the girl that the mics, the makeup, and yeah. Okay, Jack Carley was a legend because he actually did all the voices for me and for Ashing as well, and he was just brilliant. He just did all the different elements of really all the stuff on the mics and all that. So yeah.
So Making a Mark was nominated for 4 awards at the Dublin Fringe Festival in 2019, and it won the Judges' Choice Award, and it was nominated for Best Production and Best Actor for you, Mark. How did that feel?
That was really good because it means I felt on that night it was a great night because I met all the people I actually met through the Dublin Fringe, and I met all the judges as well, including when I got this nomination for the wildcard thing at the Dublin Fringe Festival. I was very, very happy, extremely happy, because it means like I never got an award like that before in the Dublin Fringe. So, there you go.
So what's the future for Making a Mark?
The future for Making a Mark, sadly, this year it didn't happen because with the coronavirus pandemic of this year. So that's been cancelled this year. But Ashing, Sean and Kealy did the application for this year, but it's gone into next year in 2021.
So where do you hope to take the show?
I'm hoping we do the tour all around Ireland and including all around England. Do more stuff as well. Like I like to do getting a Golden Globe and a BAFTA. And I like to do as well, I like to do films.
And what's a harder role to play? King Lear or Mark Smith?
Oh, that's a good question. It has to be Mark, definitely.
Okay.
Mark, would you like to see more opportunities for actors with disabilities in the industry?
Yes, definitely, because we need more people out there, like myself, and other people I know, like my friends as well. Like I like to see to collaborate with different directors. To see me in the next year or 2 or 5 years, I like to do more stuff like I like to do films, TV, Warner Brothers, Universal. I love to do singing with people, and I love to sing with Michael Ball, musical theatre. I like to work with Angela Weber, all of that. Just before I go and say goodbye, I'm just getting started in 2021. So if you'd like to see my show, go and see it. Before I go, I need to something. So the song is only a short little song. Bring him home. Bye.
We are definitely going to be watching to see where Mark and his show go next, because in his words, he is just getting started.
Hi, my name is Mark.
I'm just going to check and see if I've caught up with my... Nope, my picture is still different, but sure, we'll go ahead anyway. You should be hearing my voice. We're delighted that our next guest on the show is Amanda Coogan. Amanda is an internationally recognised and critically acclaimed artist working across the medias of live art, performance, photography and video. She was most recently seen in the Abbey Theatre's Dear Island in Windowpane by Shane O'Reilly, and joining her today is Irish Sign Language interpreter Caoimhe Coban Gray. Hello to you both.
And
I'm really
thanks,
good.
Caoimhe, you little goat.
It might be a bit confusing because I don't think that my audio is going to catch up. So maybe try and not look at my face and just listen. Could you start out by telling us a little bit about your own journey to becoming a visual and performance artist, please, Amanda?
Well, I went straight into art college, the classic art college, when I left school. And I went down to the gorgeous Limerick School of Art and Design and I studied painting. And I suppose in a very immediate and body focused way, I started to be much more interested in the gestures of making a painting. You can imagine you're jumping up and down. I had large canvases. It was all very fabulous in art college. And I suppose I started looking at that a lot more. And I went then to NCAD, to their sculpture department. And I really focused in on performance art there. And then I did a master's with an artist called Marina Abramovich, and on and on and on. I have a doctorate. I laugh when I say that. I have a doctorate in performance art. I give prescriptions for long durational performances, 8 hours minimum.
And you've known Shane O'Reilly since you were children, as far as I understand.
Well,
because
yeah. I suppose my coming to performance art as an artist is really kind of it follows the complete path of my upbringing, because I was brought up by 2 Irish Sign Language users. That actually means, in plain language, my mum and dad are deaf and they use sign language. And what we call ourselves are children of deaf adults. So myself and Shane are CODA brother and sisters. And there's an amazing bunch of CODAs, children of deaf adults, of course, all over the world. But we're very, very tight in Ireland. We kind of know each other because the deaf community is super small. And so Shane is maybe a couple of years younger than me. But of course, I know him very well, and I think he's amazing. And I had such crack doing window pane for him because his writing and his vision is just amazing, and it was great fun to do.
See, yeah, I had a question. I find it very fascinating as an actor myself, in drama training, kind of embodiment was one of the things that I really had to work on. I kind of could get a bit heady. And I wonder, as a performer that grew up with sign language, which is an embodied form of communication, did that affect you as a performer in that way? And do you think there's anything that the other performers could learn from how those skills affected your performance?
Well, you know, it's really interesting in the deaf community. You can hide nothing because everything is read in your body. Literally, one of my great pals and an amazing artist and collaboration in Dublin Theatre of the Deaf is Alvin Jones. And I've known Alvin since God was the child. But I remember one day going to Alvin, and I'd just been with hearing friends of mine. And then I was meeting Alvin for a cup of tea. And with what I call hearing friends, it's such a crazy thing to say. I was feeling a little tired, I was a bit low. But in the hearing world, you're able to say blah, 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 and nobody reads your body. So I was able to say, oh yeah, Grant, yeah, yada, 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 the way you do in English. And I remember meeting Alvin and her going, oh my God, you look shit. You're really tired. What's wrong with you? And I couldn't bullshit it away because it was completely readable on the body. So the point of that wonderful story is that deaf people, of course, read the body. So you can say what you say in your mouth or on your hands is only the icing on the cake. They read you completely in your body and what's happening in your eyes. So they body language and the expression of the body is the paramount, the absolute paramount. And I mean, I work a lot, and I really, really adore working with the Dublin Theatre of the Deaf. They are the most accomplished physical performers that I've ever worked with. And I work with lots of different performers. If I go and I show in Los Angeles, I'm working with local dancers there. I show in another place, I'm working with local performers there from lots of different disciplines. But actually, my heart is working with the Dublin Theatre of the Deaf because they are the most extraordinary performers. I mean, in my work, my work is non-narrative. I don't really use speech or stories. The story, I expect that my audience will want to come to the work and have a little dream time in the work and kind of think of what it means and what the possibilities are. Really spoon feed my work. It's a very post-dramatic theatre. And so with the Dublin Theatre of the Deaf, because they're so articulate in the body, it's phenomenal to work with them. And we learn, I mean, good God, I learned so much from them. They're absolutely amazing performers. I'd work with them day and night if I could.
And you were just working on a piece with Dublin Theatre of the Deaf that ground to a halt just before the pandemic.
Don't break my heart. The works that will never be.
Would you mind telling us a little bit about that? As heartbreaking.
Oh, my heart is broken. I'm so in love with this work that it has to happen, but I don't know how, and I don't know when, and I don't know where. but in the lovely COVID world, it's not going to happen. We were hoping to put it on in Fringe this year. So what we've done is we started our kind of formal collaborations 2014, and we did a fabulous piece called what was the name of it? Don't Tell Me. No. You told me to I had to look around the corner. You told me to watch and clean my ears, which was about the first Irish deaf civil rights march over the shooting dead by the British Army of a deaf man in Strabane in the middle of an anti-internment march in 72. So really formal thing. And then as the amazing Kate and Oona, who are so fantastic, are writing the history of forgotten and marginalised playwrights and activities within theatre back into the history books, and they're amazing women. And that's one of the lost pieces as well. We were going to go down for their symposium, which was to be on, I think, last weekend, myself and the Dublin Theatre of the Deaf. So, but anyway, as my heart breaks, we made an appropriation of Teresa Davies' The King of Spain's Daughter, and we called it Talk Real Fine, Just Like a Lady. Now, any Nina Simone people here, and I feel a little compromised talking about this within the moment of Black Lives Matters, and I know you have Noon coming up later with the most amazing video. But in terms of the deaf community in Ireland, the deaf community all over the world, as a marginalised and linguistic minority who were super oppressed, but I mean, it doesn't hold a candle to what's been happening in America for Black people. But we reached to Nina Simone's Mississippi Goddamn. So any people who know that song know that these are lines directly from the song. And the new piece, in the long way of saying this, was to be called Don't Tell Me, I'll Tell You. And of course, if we know Mississippi, it's Mississippi Goddamn, it's Don't Tell Me, I'll Tell You. Me and my people are just about through. And we were going to take Beethoven. Oh, I'm losing you here, but I'll talk for Ireland over you.
You go ahead. Carry on.
We were to take Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. This is the 250th anniversary of a Beethoven anniversary. And we were going to reclaim him as a deaf artist, just as we reclaimed Teresa Davy as a deaf artist, because as Kate and Oona explained to you, she was deaf and Irish. But Beethoven, and we wanted to go with the Ninth Symphony because Gustav Klimt, the painter, has done a visual interpretation in his Beethoven Frieze, which is in Vienna. So we're going to also take that in terms of how to interpret music. How do you interpret music for people who can't hear the music? But of course, with this Ninth Symphony, we have the poem. So actually, I had a huge theatre piece that was millions of us, gorgeous, and Queen was going to work with us. I would have roped Shane in at some stage, but the dynamos in this are Leanne Quigley from the Dublin Theatre of the Deaf and Alvin Jones, the Dublin Theatre of the Deaf. And Alvin is kind of a researcher. She really looks into how to appropriate a poem like Schiller's poem into ISL. And Leanne Quigley keeps us all in check. She's the director. So she keeps us all together, and I'm the flighty, hysterical one who's going, I want a yellow cloud on the stage, and we'll pull it in, and I need 100 people. And they keep me all in check. So I am still in mourning at this, but myself and Leanne and Alvin are still working on the it's a little tricky, the translation of Schiller's poem. But actually, pals of mine, I've had, more than us all, I've had so many projects just die on the COVID emergency pandemic moment. But I think that this is the one that still, I can't let it go. A lot of the other projects, should we know as artists, feel kind of like they need to completely recalibrate in this, in terms of so many deaths and being locked up and all the madness of the COVID moment. But actually, a very good pal of mine said to me, I think we need an ode to joy, Amanda. Keep there, keep going. So who knows? Who knows? I mean, I'm nothing if not ambitious about the work, as I laugh. But I worked years ago, a couple of years ago, with a theatre maker called Robert Wilson, and I was on tour with him for 3 years, and he does these big, huge operatic, post-dramatic theatre works, and I suppose his kind of famous one is Einstein on the Beach, if anybody knows that, and he kind of has no problem playing a scene that just is a piece moving on the stage for 10 minutes. And the piece is making no sense. I remember you say to me, Amanda, it means what you want it to mean. It means what you want, in terms of just be in the, keep with the gesture, and who cares? And of course, Bob made Deaf Man's Glance as well. So he also interrelated with the magnificent articulacy of the deaf body and the deaf presence as performers. So I would say that everyone use deaf actors. They're amazing.
Sounds like it. I don't think I've actually seen, oh, no, I have in Tribes, but no, I definitely am interested
of course,
in see some of the productions by that company. There's one more thing I want you to talk about, if that's okay. So many people will know you as the sign interpreter for productions, say at the Abbey or the Gate, but also for kind of political conferences and statements and things.
Are you kidding? I'm in Stormont every day here in Belfast, interpreting COVID, how COVID is in West Belfast and how COVID is in East Belfast. I'm kidding.
So what is the difference between interpreting a play and interpreting another form of language or presentation?
That is a fucking brilliant question.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, with the plays, obviously, I've been interpreting in the Abbey since 2000. Yes, I'm very old. And they put on, with the amazing Lisa Farrelly, they have such commitment to making the plays accessible. But also, I think that now it's not just me who does it. There's a team of us, amazing interpreters who do it, and we're hoping that Quiva over there will join us. Where's the camera? Over there. We'll join the team of theatre interpreters. Some of these days, but their commitment to interpreting every single play has had the most amazing knock-on effect in the community. I don't know if anyone heard, I hope we all did hear, Maureen Collette, new Arts Council director on, was she on this morning? She was so amazing because she talked about the investment in the arts actually having a forward trajectory for 10, for 20 years. And we can really read this in the Abbey in 2000 committing to make sign language interpreted performances of every play. And now, 15, 20 years later, we can see the absolute blossoming of the Dublin Theatre of the Deaf. And their ambition, their scale, the stories of their history, these marginalised stories, Irish stories that they're bursting to tell. And they're bursting to tell because actually they've been able to sit there and understand Sean O'Casey, the canon, Irish canon. Sean O'Casey, who we think, of course we know as a canon, but actually is always about stories of oppression, underrepresentation, discrimination, and all. This is the lived experience of the deaf community. This is the lived experience of anyone who's marginal and othered in society. And again, this is a great evening of discussions that you have here. But that investment has been amazing. Also, from a really selfish perspective, it's fabulous to get a play, read it juicy, thinking about how you will translate this and appropriate this into the Irish deaf context. And in Stormont, it's another type of theatre. I'm very grateful for the employment as a freelancer at the moment. And being sign language interpreter, I'm blessed it's allowed me to be an artist. Actually, it's that parallel career that's really have been make or break for me to be able to continue as an artist. You can imagine. But
you need this.
We
all do.
But the theatre performances are the ones that are super close to my practice. You know, when I got on stage and I did Tom Murphy's Keeley concert, for example, when one of the characters is actually Keeley singing, like I have to bring it on to that. You can't stand there on the side of the stage and half do something like that. Do you know what I mean? So I have to say I have great crack doing them, and I know that my pals, my deaf artists friends, are getting so much from it. But actually, so am I. Let's not lie. I eat it. I do like that they pay me for it as well.
You know, it doesn't hurt.
But really, I learned so much from doing it.
Yeah. Well, no, it's so fantastic that we're growing in that area, and that more and more plays are being regularly signed and more accessible, and that we will keep pushing forward.
And I think as your is it Shane? No, who was before me? Mark.
Oh, yes.
Mark, as Mark said, we need to see more people with disabilities on main stages.
Not enough.
And we need to see more productions by people with disabilities. So I want to see more productions with deaf actors in them. I want to see more things written by deaf people that are put on. I need deaf artists to be supported. And that actually means funding, by the way. And, let's rebuild ourselves. As Oona and Kate were saying, we need to rebuild in this post-COVID world. And it's going to be a little tight. It's going to be a little tricky. I'm terribly optimistic that it's not going to be as bad as it was in 2007 and 2008. But let's rebuild it properly this time.
Yeah.
We can't we can't have the excuse of going, oh, shush there in the corner. We can't afford to include you at the moment.
Let's not go back to normal.
We've learned that lesson.
Yeah.
Let's not do that. Let's include the diversity, and let's love the diversity and learn from the diversity and be enriched by that diversity.
Yeah. That sounds like an absolutely perfect, hopeful note to end this interview on. I'm gonna keep
Brilliant,
that
it'd be
moment.
gorgeous to talk to you. And Caoimhe, you're awesome. Thanks a million.
Yes, thank you so
Sign
much.
language interpreters are fabulous, by the way.
Yes. Thank you. Good night.
Take care.
And thanks.
Good night. See you.
Say thank you again to Caoimhe Coben-Gray and Amanda Coogan for coming on our show for that hilarious, very fun, uplifting interview. And also our associate producer and social media manager, Abigail Grimstad, who stayed up all night for the last few nights to make sure that we had captions to the pre-recorded elements of tonight's show. So thank you, Abby. We still have so much to learn about access, but we hope that we're going to continue making some strides towards providing access to our show for all. And this is usually the point in the show where we share our final monologue. We call it the last word. But we thought about it, and all too often, people like me, who are white, able-bodied, neurotypical, heterosexual, tend to be the ones to speak about or try to explain or to think that we fully understand the struggles of other less privileged groups. But we don't. We can't. Not really, and not well enough. And while Stage Door Live's primary goal is to start conversations and to deepen understanding, we know that sometimes the most important thing really is just to listen. When Tony McLean-Fay, the artistic director of Bare Cheek Theatre Company and its Wexford Youth Theatre, introduced us to Noon Abubakar, we knew we had to share her story, and we knew we had to listen. So we hope you'll listen with us now. Noon Abubakar is a 17-year-old member of Wexford Youth Theatre who moved to Ireland from Sudan 4 years ago. She was due to speak at a Black Lives Matter protest in Wexford, which was unfortunately cancelled by authorities due to COVID concerns. But we would really like her message to be heard, so take a little look.
Hi, my name is Noon, I'm 17 and I'm Black. I moved from Sudan, a predominantly Black country in Africa, 4 years ago. Racism has instilled itself so deep into the fabric of our society that almost every modern culture in the world has anti-Black aspects. This proves true to me because even though during my time in Sudan I never had to worry about what it felt like to be a minority, I was still conditioned to hate myself and to want to change every Afrocentric feature about myself. In this world, I know that no matter what, there are people out there that hate me that don't even know I exist. This is a fact that I've always known. This is a fact that I'll have to continue to live with. We're here today to not only stand against police brutality against Black people in America and the UK, but also to show solidarity for Black people around the world. To say that enough is enough. This racism drilled so deep into our minds that we aren't even aware of its presence is no longer going to win. Black Lives Matter means so much to so many people. To me, it finally brings light to the anti-Blackness still prevalent in the world today. It brings light to the injustice that Black people have to face, both in America and globally. It brings light to the system meant to keep us in check. The system that allowed those police officers to get away with murder. My name is Noon, I'm 17, and I'm Black. It always feels like no one's listening. Listen to me now. My name is Noon, it's 2003, and I haven't been born yet. People that look like me are facing the unimaginable. There is a system in place made to break me down until I don't want to be Black anymore. My name is Noon, I'm 5, and I'm Black. I'm in England. The teacher starts talking about how we should all be more grateful because people in Africa are starving. I start crying, believing that my family in Sudan is starving, and the teacher tries to get me to stop. She says, no, it's not your family. I don't know this yet, but people are only willing to think about the issues of Black people when it benefits the point that they're trying to make. Only a few people really care. I know I'm different from everyone else in my class. My name is Noon, I'm 6, and I'm Black. I'm called to the office because they want to know how to spell my older sister's name. A girl in my class told her that she didn't want a piggyback ride from her because her skin was made of poo, and now she's being made to write an apology letter to her. At the time, it's entertainment, and I laugh. I know exactly what she meant, but I still laugh. A few years later, I'm not laughing anymore. My name is Noon, I'm 7, and I'm Black. I'm in Sudan now. Everyone looks like me. My uncle asks us if we're jealous of our cousin because her skin is lighter than ours. My cousin was 6 months old at the time. It doesn't make sense at first, but slowly it begins to. I don't know this yet, but this is where I begin to hate myself. My name is Noon, I'm 8 and I'm Black. I refuse to admit to the fact that I'm Sudanese. I say, by the law, I'm Irish because of my passport. It's disgusting to me for some reason to admit to my heritage. For some reason, it's better to admit to be European than it is to be African. You know the reason. My name is Noon, I'm 9 and I'm Black. There's a girl in my year who's white. Everybody loves her, everybody wants to be her friend, all the boys are simping over her. She says to me, if you're Irish, then why is your hair like that? In my mind, I know that all the boys like her more than me and the other girls because she's white. But also in my mind, that makes complete sense. My name is Noon, I'm 10 and I'm black. My grandma relaxes my hair for the first time as a gift for my birthday. She says it looks a lot better now. She doesn't relax my sister's, it's not as curly. I'm happy to no longer have ugly, curly hair. I get many compliments. I don't know this yet, but I'm going to regret this a lot when I'm older. I relaxed my hair for the next 3 years. There was nothing ever wrong with my hair. My name is Noon, I'm 11 and I'm black. I'm becoming much more aware of racism, I'm becoming much more aware of what the real world is like. And I'm 11. I'm 11. But for some reason, I still relax my hair and a part of me still wants to be white. I completely cut off anything that is stereotypically black. I think I'm better than my classmates because I don't listen to rap. My teacher, who is white, says that he is sick of people blaming the issues on Africa on white people. I'm angry, but I can't find the words to express why. I know why now. My name is Noon, I'm 12 and I'm black. There is something in my head pitting me against the teachers in my school who are not white or don't speak like English as their first language. In my school, your value as a teacher was determined by your heritage or your accent. We have a science teacher who's Sudanese and has a heavy accent. As a class, we complain. My mother goes through the notes from the class and tells me they all make sense. It starts to make sense to me now why I thought he was a bad teacher. There's something about the way I measured his intelligence by how proper of an accent he had that made me feel guilty. I'm still guilty. My name is Noon, I'm 13 and I'm black. I know all these things about racism now. I know all these things about what's right and wrong. I'm opinionated, I know my morals, and I'm 13. All the boys in my year like white girls. They send pictures of them into our year group chat, and even though I say racism is bad, I'm glad to be black, a part of me still wishes I was white. In my mind, I will never have to deal with anything more than the hatred I have for myself. I live in Sudan and everyone looks like me. The end of that summer, I moved to Ireland. I spent hours upon hours looking up black people in Ireland, racism in Ireland, Islamophobia in Ireland. Have you ever had to look that up? My name is Noon, I'm still 13 and I'm still black. I'm in Ireland now. There are 2 other black girls in my year. On the first day of school, someone asks me if I'm cousins with one of them. I'd never met them before in my life. People are impressed that me from Africa is so well-spoken, so educated, so literate. People say, wow, she's so pretty, and for some reason it's a shock. I had spent my entire life up to this point wishing that I was white, and now I'm being praised for the very features that I was taught to hate. I know my ideals and they're set in stone. I will not let anyone disrespect me, and I will not let anyone use the N-word. We read of mice and men in class. Everyone says the N-word. My name is Noon, I'm 14 and I'm black. People, my friends even, have said the N-word to me and I've had to let it slide. I want to conform. I want to not make people uncomfortable with my discomfort. I say, don't say that, quietly. I let my white friends defend me because it's easier when they do it than when I do. I'm reminded every day by myself that I'm different. All my rage and bitterness are kept within myself. Maybe it's because I was never particularly used to being a minority. I go to my history class. They skip over slavery. It's not in the curriculum. I say, what the fuck? My name is Noon, I'm 15 and I'm black. I go to the cinema with my sister to watch the new Black Panther movie. A group of white teenagers sit next to us. We hear them ridicule the accents of the characters. We hear them call them the N-word. We hear them mock their accents and plaster it all over their social media. But there's no racism in Ireland. They ask us where we're from. We say Sudan. They laugh. The summer of this year, a group of girls do blackface in Wexford. A group of girls do blackface in Wexford. It's almost so ridiculous that I have to laugh. All the black people I know are outraged. In silence. Do you know how hard it is to stand up to something as a minority with the potential backlash you'll get from literally everybody? I'm reminded once again that if I was to ever bring up racial issues, I would not only risk upsetting people, but losing my friends. I'm in a constant battle in my head from being true to my ideals or cultivating meaningful friendships. I forgive and forgive and forgive. I forsake everything I've ever believed. It's more acceptable for my friends to be outraged by racism than it is for me. I know the reason. I don't say why. My name is Noon. I'm 16 and I'm black. I've heard the N-word so many times that I'm no longer even surprised when I hear people say it. There's a certain exhaustion that comes with every reaction I have to yet another person here being racist. I've heard all the jokes. I'm not laughing. I don't want to do it anymore. I find solace in the other people in Wexford, but it's not enough. I'm tired of explaining things to people over and over and over again. I used to say they don't know any better, but there's a point when people just don't want to know any better. My school wants to present me as a diversity statistic. They want me to present my culture at the Culture Day Fair so they can show on the newspaper just how beautifully diverse this school is. I'm reminded of every single time I've heard the N-word being sung in the halls by girls singing their favorite songs. I'm reminded of the month of English class where everybody was saying the N-word, where I saw it written on the board on the walls. I'm reminded of the teacher that has defended blackface. I'm reminded of having to repeat myself over and over again to people that I've already explained things to. I'm reminded of how exhausted I am. I'm reminded of the silence that always comes with my anger. I do the Culture Day Fair. I put on a smile. A teacher comes up to me and says, "Wow, and they told me you weren't doing it." People only ever want to acknowledge and talk about our differences when it benefits them, when it's easy to accept. My name is Noon. I'm 17 and I'm black. I hear about racist attacks everywhere, including Ireland. I think about the way that my mother told me that when she worked here 20 years ago as a doctor, people refused to be treated by her. I think of the way I've seen people look down on my father when he speaks to them in an accent that isn't as prim and proper, despite the fact that he is a respected doctor. I've been absorbing racist videos, racist comments, racist people, racist stereotypes, and racism for the past 17 years. Racism is a system. It is not just an individual comment made to a person of color. It is something that we have been forced to grow up with. It is stereotypes so deeply ingrained into people's minds that they can't even begin to think about why they are wrong. It is self-hatred. It is being unable to find any representation of yourself in modern media. It is clinging onto any representation of yourself you find. It is being seen as a thug, as uneducated, as aggressive. It is being less likely to get a job. It is being seen as only a statistic. It is the sinking feeling you get when you realize that someone is about to say something insensitive and you are going to have to choose between having friends and having morals. My name is Noon, and I'm 17, and I will not censor myself. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black people are being murdered on the street. Black people are being taught to hate themselves since they are children. Black people are being told every terrible thing that has ever happened to them throughout history, and then being told to get over it. Black people are being told that they are overreacting to 400 years worth of slavery. Black children are hated before they even have the chance to live. This is about George Floyd. This is about Philando Castile, Eric Garner, Sandra Bland, Tatiana Jefferson, David McAtee, Trayvon Martin. This is about Breonna Taylor. This is about all of them. This is about the black people that are here and the black people that aren't here. This is about dismantling this culture that has allowed us to suffer in silence. This is about getting rid of this constant denial that race doesn't apply anymore. This is about the unjust racism that has been happening to us for centuries, that being swept under the rug because it's in the past. If it's in the past, what are all these dead bodies? Who are all these people begging for reform? You can say Ireland doesn't have that much racism. That much is still some. That much is still contributing to the rest of the world, and this denial is what is killing us. And I'm tired, but I am black, and I am proud, and I will advocate for every black person in the world just as I know they would for me. Just as I know they are for me. Black lives matter. People can inhale black music, absorb black culture, idolize black artists, say that they're not racist even though they use the N-word and refuse to listen to any black person that tells them otherwise. But they can't fight for black people? They don't have that decency? Funny. If you are silent during times of oppression, then you have taken the side of the oppressor. My name is Noon. I'm 17, and I'm black. Does my life matter?
Thank you so much, Noon, for letting us share your words on Stage Door Live. It is so important. We have so much to learn, and your life matters. Black lives matter. Now, finally, don't forget that next week we want to feature you, our audience, in next week's episode. Between now and next Monday, you can record a video and post it on your social media answering the question, what do you need from theatre? Tag theatremaker.ie, whatever platform you're using, so that we can find it, and use the hashtag audiences are coming back. We can't wait to receive your answers and to feature a few of those, what you need from theatre, in next week's show. If you haven't already, please do give us a like on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and on Instagram, share the show with your friends and your followers. On YouTube, you can click on the subscribe button and click the bell to get notifications of our future broadcasts and our YouTube exclusive content. And as always, thank you to our viewers who have been with us since the first episode. Thank you to all the viewers that have joined us since and stuck with us. Very warm welcome to anyone who is brand new to Stage Door Live. And we very much look forward to sharing more with you all soon. Now, here to leave us with a reading of The Summer is Coming by Brian Guinness is actor Shane Byrne, a member of Equinox Theatre Company and resident at KCAT Arts Centre, with Irish Sign Language by the lovely Amanda Coogan. Good night, everyone, and we hope to see you next week at 7 p.m.
Hello there, my name is Shane Byrne. I am an actor with Equinox Theatre Company, KCAT, Campbellcallan, County Kilkenny. And the poem I'm about to recite is called The Summer is Coming by Brian Guinness, Lord Moying, poet and a novelist. And it's my favourite poem. The summer is coming. The summer is coming over the hills. The milk of the blacktongue is bursting in spills. All day the cuckoo in County Mayo beats at the flute as he flits high and low. Dark is the turf, and grey is the stone, and sad is the sky, for the wild geese gone. But the gleaming cloak of the grass begins under the golden bud of the winds. The black boats walk on the silver strand like beagles that go on the edge of the land. The black boats tilt on the western waves, black heifers stand of the old green graves. Thank you for listening. Goodbye. Thanks a billion.